let me take your questions. I don't know what kind of time constraints we have here, but and I think am I also signing books too?
Yes,
Afterward, because we're coming up on Memorial Day, and I think nothing says Happy Memorial Day better than a signed book. So, do people just come forward, Cheryl? Yeah. Okay. Anyone? Believe you me, I'm not so complete. But,
I'll start off the question.
Thank you.
Yeah. Scott, you talk about not trying to judge the Chinese government, and yet bemoaning the fact that there are so many Chinese baby girls. Can you talk about how you feel like you're talking about and writing this book might be making any headway or might be educating people about possible change in policy, either American leaders putting pressure or Chinese folks thinking about it?
Maybe in one small matter, I think we're learning in a variety of policy areas that my wife and I are flying out to Los Angeles on Monday to Julie McCarthy, our esteemed reporter who's based in Islamabad, is getting a well-deserved award. And I remember something Julie said to me years ago when she was on a reporting trip to China, where she said, to stand on any street corner in Shanghai or Beijing is to understand they really don't care what we think when all is said and done. It's the Middle Kingdom. I think in the main there's something to that. And I do want understood, I mean, my wife and I feel that the one-child policy is a hideous violation of human rights. That is not why we adopted children from China. We're not that good. We're not motivated that way. At the time we applied, China just had the most expeditious program going. And we were told that once our application was approved, we could have a child within 9 months. It turned out to be 18 months for Elise and 2 years for Lena. That being said, we are now half a Chinese family. And we feel it incumbent upon ourselves to make ourselves aware of China and to help our little girls be aware of the fact that obviously they're Chinese. There are a lot of things, but we want them to understand that. Since the book came out, there's some people who approached me, and actually I've brought the idea to that other Chicagoan who's the Secretary of State, which I think is a good idea. Practically, I don't know as we'll ever be in a position to know the birth mothers of our children. You can never rule out the effect of history, though. And the idea that we brought, and I have no idea if it's going to fly, but I think people in the State Department are interested, is beginning a registry, a DNA registry of youngsters who are adopted from China, so that at some point in the future, if the technology continues to develop, and if certain changes in China develop, it might in fact be possible to be able to eventually trace the family lineage. And maybe that's as close as we can come. You know, the waiting list for children from China now is, I think, between 5 and 6 years. And I think if my wife and I were adopting today, we would go elsewhere. 5 and 6 years, I honestly can't imagine what family would be able to sign up under those circumstances. But we do feel that it's important to have our children, and us for that matter, try and connected to and sensitive to events in China. And, you know, the hard part will come. It's funny, people sometimes say, have you told your children they're adopted? As if somehow, like at the age of 11 or 12, we go to Elise and say, baby, now you may have noticed that you and Dad are a little different in appearance or something. So they have always known they're adopted, and I think they're comfortable with that. And I think we pretty much think we can begin to explain at some level now why they're from China and why we went to China. The day is going to come when we're going to be at a reunion with the families who adopted, and one of them is going to turn around and say, how come we're all girls? And that's going to be harder to handle. Yes, sir. I'm so glad to be here.
I just want to thank you in 3 ways for writing the book, for coming here today, and for making such a great presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. He said something very nice. You speak English better than I speak French. Yes, ma'am.
Do you take your children to like Chinese?
And you can step up some.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, what?
There are get-togethers for adopted children and their parents. I know Wisconsin has one this summer for a week or two where the children who came in a group
Yeah.
adopted or
No, we were with 4 other families for our first adoption, and just with one other family from Annapolis, actually from our second adoption. And yes, we do get together with them. You know, there are families who are more observant of that than we are. We travel a lot. I mean, we began the week very thrillingly watching, we are friends with an astronaut who's aboard STS-134, and we got to see his launch. And, you know, I'm blessed enough to be in a position where we get to take our kids interesting places, and so we do that. They used to go to a Sunday Mandarin Chinese culture class. Elise is 8. And I think speaks Mandarin pretty well, but when it gets to the point when they tell you there are other things they would rather be doing with their time, I think you have to respect it, or at least as my wife and I say, you can drag the kids to Mandarin class, but you can't make them speak. And we noticed that the only word they seem interested in bringing home was, and some people here might know it, pigu, derriere. And it's in fact a great word, and it's our family default word for derriere. But in any event, at some point they might express more interest in it, and we'll be sensitive to that.
I'm curious about things like food and
To Chinese food? You know, this is the wonderful thing about America. You don't have to introduce them to Chinese food. I mean, I think they like Mr. Chen's noodles as almost their favorite, but I don't kid myself that there's any great cultural commitment to the fact that they like Mr. Chen's noodles. You know, we live right above the noodle shop, and I think a lot of people in the building like Mr. Chen's noodles. So. You know, I think you can exaggerate that. There are people who've come up to us and say, you know, our children are going to speak Mandarin fluently. And by the way, I think it would be good for everybody's kids to learn Mandarin. I don't necessarily think that because a lot of our daughters happen to be, yes, you know, adopted from China, the onus should be greater on them. Our daughters do speak French very well, which is important in our family, and we think that's kind of neat in any case. I think everybody could stand to learn Chinese, obviously, at this particular point. We've adopted 2 real little girls. They are not vessels of a culture, or more than vessels of a culture. And I think you, as parents, you have to respond to the ways in which they're growing up and their interests. Now, you know, all of that being noted, they might be passionately interested in their heritage at some point, and we'll follow through to let them learn that. People come up to me and say, you know, our children will learn Mandarin fluently, or if they're adopted from Ethiopia, or they're going to learn Amharic fluently, and we're going to celebrate all the 200 national holidays and that sort of thing. And my wife and I can tell they're new at it. And we want to say to them, try getting them to eat broccoli first. Our children, of course, love broccoli. Yes, ma'am.
Or adopting now, what countries or places or sources would you look to avoid 5 to 6 years for China?
You know, I'm not an expert on that. I don't know. At the time, pardon me? Oh yeah. If we were adopting now, what countries would we go to? You know, I'm not an expert on that. At the moment we were making the decision, we were told that domestic adoption was difficult for us because of a variety of reasons, beginning with my age, not my wife's, that we would be at the back of a line. I had spent a considerable time in Ethiopia. The Ethiopian program just had no slots at that point. I'd spent a lot of time in Bosnia and the Balkans, and the good news there was that there weren't many slots there. Whereas China, for a lot of reasons, had a very expeditious program, so that's what we applied there. It's my understanding that Ethiopia has opened up more at this particular point, but I mean, that's Gesundheit. That's why you go to reliable, reputable adoption agencies to give you that kind of guidance. I guess we can take one more question. I was told 5 minutes, so. Yes. I know, what that's
you said you went to the non-chain Walmart. What was your experience? Because I was there.
The non-chain Walmart?
Yeah.
Have you been to the non-chain Walmart? It's quite a place, isn't it? Nanchang, I should explain, is like the city that considers itself home of Mao's revolution. And so in the central square of Nanchang, which I think is the second largest central square in China, or so we were told, you see a statue of the great helmsman, Chairman Mao, pointing like this, and he seems to be pointing to the Walmart. I guess that's what happened. And it's dazzling. And you can get the squeaky shoes there. Some of you might be familiar with squeaky when you're learning to walk or just want to keep track of your child, I suppose. They're great. They've got these little squeakers in the soles, and you can get them as we did. We got them to kind of follow them through to like the age of 3. We got them in all sizes that we could, and I miss those squeaky shoes. There's something really nice about, you know, I love to hear the squeak in the hallways. You know, it speaks to how things are changing in China. It also in some ways speaks to how things are not changing in China. I mean, you know, Walmart is a huge, vast commercial enterprise that I think fits very nicely into the kind of commercial despotism that is also China at the same time. But we wouldn't, you know, that's where we were taken to shop, and we wouldn't pass up the chance. The food section there is extraordinary, but not quite what we're used to. I mean, they've got stuff hanging, pickled, right? That just, yeah, we didn't bring back. But that's from the Nanchang Walmart. This full white dress. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott Simon. Thank you for all coming out today and for being in this tent. Our keynote speaker is going to be coming up next. I just want to remind you, please fill out a survey. They are on the back table. It will help us continue to improve the Gaithersburg Book Festival. In the meantime, though, please make sure you buy some of the books by Scott Simon, by all of our wonderful authors who are with us today. Support literature, support the authors, and continue to read. Scott's going to be over here signing books if you'd like to come and meet him and say hello. Thank you.
Ronnie. And they actually blew this up, so the front part of the card was just like a little sort of snapshot.